in those moments where you're faced with pressure, you're faced with judgment from multiple people, that is actually going to determine whether or not that bulletproof mindset gets developed in you. In this video, I'm going to be teaching you guys how to develop a bulletproof mindset, especially when it comes to trying to achieve a transformation that you've set out for yourself. And when I say a bulletproof mindset, what I mean by that is a mindset that's able to withstand pushback or pressure when you say, okay, I want to achieve this goal, because pushback is a natural consequence of trying to grow as a person. Your body gives you pushback, your mind gives you pushback. And so in this video, I'm going to be explaining how to overcome those obstacles. And so there's three different angles I'm going to tackle this topic with. I'm going to be tackling developing a strong mindset from a physical standpoint. I'm also going to be talking about it from a spiritual standpoint and also an intellectual standpoint. Let's say you have a group of friends, right? And you tell them, hey, bro, I want to become a better soccer player. I want to become more fit in the gym. I want to start dressing better and then start talking to more women. If you're the person that is typically not known for these things that you're saying you're trying to do, the first reaction of your friends is probably to just laugh at you or look at you as somebody that's unserious, right? However, it is in those moments that the strength of your mindset is going to determine whether or not you actually crumble or whether or not you're going to overcome the laughters and the people making fun of you and still decide and dedicate yourself to achieving the transformation that you just openly said you're trying to achieve. And so for me, when I was younger, right, you guys know all those kids where, because I've played soccer since I was in high school, and I was one of those kids, and I'm sure you guys will be able to relate to this if you're in sports. I was one of the kids that when people are picking their teams, they would always wait till the last moment to pick me. And why was that the case? I was not the best soccer player growing up, right? However, anytime that would always happen to me, it felt very embarrassing. Like I didn't like it. I didn't like the feeling of being picked last. I didn't like the feeling of like the thought of people being like, nah, Faye's not that good of a player. It really affected my confidence. And so what I did was I made an internal decision that I'm going to train until I become more confident in my skills. And there were still times where I would mess up and I would still make mistakes, and people would still not, they would shout at me and be like, oh, bro, because what I started doing after I made the decision to improve myself is that I would apply the skills and the things that I was learning and training in the games. And even if I would make mistakes, because obviously I'm still learning them, and people would make fun of me and be like, bro, what are you doing? You're not this type of player. Stop doing that. I didn't let the discouragement stop me from trying to get better. I knew that I was training. I knew that I was getting better. I listened to the criticism of players, of the people, or the adults that were telling me to stop doing certain things or trying new things while I was playing with them. I would never have actually developed myself, because it's one thing to practice when you're on your own and train yourself. It's another thing to apply those things in the real world situation when you're actually dealing with other people. And so that mindset allowed me to keep developing as a player and got me to where I am today, where I'm not a professional by any means necessary, but I'm definitely not the last person getting picked anytime I'm playing a soccer match, whether it's with my actual competitive team or whether it's just with my group of friends. Why? Because I worked on myself. I believed that I could get better, and so I started taking action. And I think that's the key thing I want you guys to take from this point. Taking action reinforces a strong mindset, because it confirms and is evidence that you are who you say you are, right? When you know that you've put in the work and you know that that you are improving, you're not perfect yet, but you are improving, it allows you to encourage yourself when the world tries to put you down to keep going, right? And that is how you actually develop a strong mindset. Now let's take it from a spiritual angle. When you say, okay, I want to fellowship more, I want to build my relationship with God, I want to become more disciplined. The biggest enemy or roadblock to your spiritual development is your own flesh. Like when you're not used to fellowshipping or building that relationship or talking to God, your body is going to start fighting you. It's going to become uncomfortable. It's going to become more stressed when you're now trying to replace your old habits with newer ones. Why? Because your brain likes comfort. It likes routine. It likes things that are repetitive, even if those things are not necessarily the best for you. Those are the moments where you must bring your thoughts into captivity. Those are the moments where you must hold on to the vision of the person you're trying to become, so that you stay anchored to the process and you take the right actions to become that person. Right. And then from an intellectual standpoint, trying to learn something, or if you're not the type of person that likes reading or listening to podcasts, it has to be something bigger than yourself that encourages you to dedicate yourself to getting smarter. You can't just say, I just want to read for the sake of reading. If you're not the type of person that naturally enjoys reading, which I wasn't, it's going to be very difficult for you to let this habit stick. And so I'm going to give you guys an example from my own personal story. I was never the type of person that cared about news. I was never interested in the news, didn't like politics. Not that I wouldn't like, I just didn't care about it. In Nigeria, I never watched it. My parents would say, Faye, you watch the news, be informed about what's happening, things like that. But I wasn't interested. Even when we came to the States, I still didn't care. However, there was an experience I had. I had an experience through going to school in this country, right? When I went to community college in this country, I noticed very quickly that there was a cultural, spiritual, and political battle happening within those classrooms. And what I mean by that is I quickly realized that a lot of the values I had been raised with as a Christian, as somebody who believes in tradition, were being attacked by professors, right? The professors were not teaching me how to become a critical thinker. They were trying to teach me how to think, and they were infusing or putting their own political ideology into the curriculum, which I was not comfortable with and I didn't like. And there were times where I would try and speak in class, but I knew a little bit about the topic. I knew enough about where I stood and what my convictions were to disagree, but I didn't have enough intelligence. I didn't have enough information or nuance on how to debate or speak in public, which prevented me from articulating my points in a way that made sense to people or didn't leave me feeling embarrassed. And so what did I do? I started reading, started watching debates. I got so deep into learning about politics, American history, and just wanting to just learn more. Why? Because I felt very passionate about people hearing the truth. I felt very passionate about speaking up for people who have the similar values as me but are too scared to say it. And so I said, I'm going to equip myself and become more intelligent, become more aware, become more articulate, so that when I'm able to speak in classes, I'm going to be confident. And the trials of that experience in school allowed me to become a smarter person and the person that I am today. And so when I started that journey, it wasn't like overnight I just became a better speaker or I became more confident, right? There were times where I would learn something and I would look ahead. So what I would do is I would know that there's a specific, I'll see the class. Let's say it's criminal justice, right? Or in English, or, it's social science. I would analyze the curriculum. I would see the topics that the teacher is going to speak on. And then I would go ahead and research and just get my own understanding or knowledge about whatever that topic or whatever the course is going to be for the semester. So I have a good idea of kind of the talking points this professor is going to be bringing up throughout the semester, so that when I walked into classes, I was prepared. And when I first started that, I wasn't the most confident immediately, right? But what I did was, this is where it comes back to developing that bulletproof mindset. What I did was, even though I was not where I wanted to be overnight, I would still raise my hand up. I would still speak. Even if the whole class, when I say something and I put my hand up and I say an opinion that goes against the vast majority of the people in the class or challenges the professor, there were times that people would look back and be like, who's this guy? Like, how can you say something? Things that are absolutely just common sense things to believe. I would say those things in classes and people would look back at me like I'm stupid, or people would look at me like I'm dumb. And I would get nervous. There were times where I remember I would get nervous, but I didn't let that prevent me from still speaking, prevent me from still saying my opinion, prevent me from still saying what I believe to be the truth. It is in those moments where you're faced with pressure, you're faced with judgment from multiple people that is actually going to determine whether or not that bulletproof mindset gets developed in you. Because if I learn the things that help me become a smarter person, but I didn't raise my hand to speak up in class, what benefit does it do? The only way that the bulletproof mindset sticks is once you do the learning, you do the action, you go and work on yourself, you're going to improve your skill, you're going to improve your intellect. The only way the bulletproof mindset actually forms is for you to implement the things you've learned in real world situations and feel the pressure, feel the pushback. That is all part of the growth, right? The more you do that, the more you're going to overcome, and eventually things that made you nervous are not going to make you nervous. And over time, people will look at you and be like, oh bro, you're so confident. Oh, you're such a good player. Oh, I didn't know that you were this smart, right? I had times in class where people would come to me after the class, after speaking, and they'd be like, bro, I can't believe you did it. You're so brave. You're so courageous. Like, I could have never done it. Little did they know that I was not the most confident. I was still very nervous. I was still like them. But because I was committed to improving myself as an individual, getting smarter, and having a strong mindset, I still pushed through my fear. And that's the difference between me. That's what differentiated me and the other people who thought the same thing that I did, but kept quiet and didn't speak up for things that they believed. So that is the only way to grow. So if mental toughness is something that you want to achieve in any area of your life where you feel like you're weak in it, recognize your weakness and figure out the ways you can improve in this weakness. And then when you are put in situations to apply the things that you've now learned, you have to take those opportunities. You have to embrace the fear, you have to embrace the failures, you have to embrace the embarrassment, you have to embrace the pressure for your mindset to get stronger. Maybe not to the point where the fear is completely gone, but it would definitely take you to the point where you're able to push past the fear and still do the work eventually. That is what courage is. Courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is bravery despite the presence of fear, not the absence of it. If you are a guy watching this video, chances are you are somebody that wants to improve yourself. You want to become more attractive. You want to become a more confident man. I want you to send me an email down in the description, and I will reach back out to you and we can work one-on-one, and I can help you achieve whatever transformation you're trying to get to.